Hi everyone, it's Heidi from Flutter by Heidi, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based here in the United Kingdom. And today's project is going back to the main catalogue, at least for the designer series paper. And I'm also using a stamp set which might have escaped you because this is in our beginner brochure, and it's just a very pretty small image of the magnolia blooms. So whilst you've got the big magnolia stamp set, Good Morning Magnolia, lovely big flowers. However, you know, this actually is a lovely introductory stamp set, or a complimentary one if you've already got the big one, because it's got a smaller flower in, and it's got this lovely script, happy birthday and thank you, in there as well. So that's the stamp set I wanted to use today, along with the coordinating Magnolia designer series paper, and I'm making this big box. Sometimes out of a sheet of A4 you get frustrated because you can't quite make as big a box as you might like. So with this one, it's a ribbon closure, it's using the tag topper punch at the ends, and it opens up to create a big box, and it is big enough for makeup brushes. So that's to give you an idea of the size of it. So you could pop pens in there if you wanted, and this is the largest I could get out of a sheet of A4 cardstock. And I will do a couple of smaller versions as well. And this is UK A4 cardstock. So in the US, you won't be able to get one quite this long. You've only got 11-inch cardstock, but I'll try work out the dimensions for you, because actually they're very, very similar. But you'll end up with a box that's about 3/4 of an inch shorter. So I'm using the lovely ribbon, which I've now misplaced, but I will no doubt find in time, which is this one here, which is the Petal Pink Organdy Striped ribbon, and that's from the main catalogue, and that matches the cardstock. So I've used Petal Pink on this one, and the basic box is actually made out of standard Whisper White A4. So without further ado, let's crack on with it. So it really is not as complicated as you might think to do this. You're going to take a sheet of Whisper White A4 cardstock. Here's one I have here. And you're not going to trim it at all. You are going to score it at, you'll need the extender out, and we are going to score at, well, if I can actually get myself organised, we're going to score on the short edge 2, 4, 6 and 8 inches. So that's the same if you're in the US, so you'll just use the full width of cardstock, so you'll have a slightly bigger tab to fold in. And then all you're going to do is on the length, so it's 11 3/4 for the UK, you're just going to score at 2 inches on both ends. So, as I say, in the US your box will be slightly shorter. It will change the measurements for your panels of DSP, but that's all the scoring we're going to do on our cardstock. Now, I'm then using our lovely Magnolia designer series paper, as you can see here. Lots of lovely colours in, and so you've got some beautiful patterns in here. So I used this one on the first one. All of these are double-sided, so with quite a lot of. I'm personally not so keen on the black background ones, but I rather like this paper, so I thought I'd use that one. And also, you can layer that up then, or we could use this one here, which is also a lovely, pretty one as well. In fact, I might go for this one. There we go. Changed my mind all the way through. Yay. Okay, so now I'm going to cut some panels. So the length of the panels is 7.5 inches. So I'm going to trim this to 7.5. Then I'm going to turn my card, and I'm going to cut 3 pieces, which are 1 3/4. No, I'm not. That was the card layer I was supposed to do. 7 3/8. Okay, I'll trim them in a minute. Right. So for the layers, for the DSP, you want them 1 5/8 wide. So 1 5/8. and you want 3 of these. But I'm going to cut a 4th. Right, 1 5/8. So you want 3 pieces at a 1 5/8 of DSP by 7 3/8. Right. So 7 3/8, that's my first piece. 7 3/8. And a third piece, 7 3/8. And then I cut an extra piece because we're going to want a couple for the ends, and those are pieces for the ends are 1 5/8 by 1 5/8. So my piece is already 1 5/8, so we're going to just cut that to 1 5/8 again. I will put all the dimensions on my blog, so apologies for a little bit of confusion there. Right, I'm now going to cut my panels of, this time I might use, I think I'm going to use some Mossy Meadow. So there's some Mossy Meadow, and this is what we are going to cut to 7.5 inches. So, okay. So trim it to 7.5 inches, and then again you want 3 pieces, only this time they are 1 3/4. So 1 3/4 by 3. And then again we're going to want 2 end pieces. So I just want to cut a couple of small pieces which are 1 3/4 square. Right. So those are our 2 end pieces. Now I also want to cut another couple of pieces for the tabs on the top, but I'm actually going to cut those in the petal pink because the flower won't really show up on the Mossy Meadow. So I've got a couple of scrappy bits that are going to be 1 3/4 by 2 inches. So it's 1 3/4 on the length, and then I want 2 that are 2 inches. And you'll need a post-it note as well, just to help us with the punching of those as well. Okay, so I think that is now all of my cutting, having faffed about a bit. So let's crack on with our construction. Okay, so in terms of our construction, we're going to fold and reinforce these score lines. So it's standard Whisper White, and the reason I haven't done, you could do it in thick Whisper White if you wanted to, would make it a bit more substantial, but because we're putting layers on 3 of the sides and on the ends, you don't need anything more substantial than standard Whisper White really. Okay, so we've reinforced those creases. Now what we're going to do is cut down this skinny little tab at the top here. Just notch it in slightly and cut down that score line like so. So having done that, you're then going to cut down from that little tab like so. So those are like that, and then you're going to cut down twice, but obviously just be careful because the ones you want to cut down are the ones away from this tab, so they're these bottom ones here. Okay. Now while this is still flat and we haven't got anything attached to it, we're going to take a tag topper punch, and I've deliberately used this one because it's got the flat slot which suits the ribbon better. and you're going to pop that in all the way. Now if you're at all unsure, it just goes in all the way there. Turn it over and just make sure that it is nicely centred. Just because it's a little bit awkward being a fairly large piece of card. And you're going to do the same on the opposite end. So again, pop that in all the way, and when you turn it over you should see that that's nicely centred. Like so. While we've got our tag punch out, I'm going to take these two smaller pieces and I'm going to put it in on the 1 3/4 width. Ignore the noise of my dog clattering about. He's decided to come and see what I'm up to. He doesn't come up the stairs very often anymore. He's getting a little bit ancient. But if he can hear me talking, he thinks it's his prerogative to come upstairs and double check what I'm up to. So anyway, here we go. So just pop that in. Now because this is a bit narrower, you just need to centre it manually. So once you've centred it, you've got one piece. Do the same again. Pop that in. Again, just pop that till you're happy it's centred. And you've got a second piece. Okay. So those two pieces we're actually going to stamp before we put them on. Obviously you could stamp afterwards, but it just makes it a little bit awkward. So I'm using the smaller floral image that I've got from the stamp set, which I've popped on a block, and just with the petal pink ink I'm adding those onto the ends there, like so. So these I'm then going to pop on. I'm just going to use a bit of fuse for speed. When I was doing my sample, I actually used my Tombow, which is fine for box making as well. But it's obviously easier for me to be able to show you how to construct these. So all I'm doing now is lining that up with the tag hole. Gosh, that was a lucky escape. I nearly stuck that to the back of the box. So just line that up on the top first, and then that fits flush. So now we can put our layers on. And again, I'm putting my Mossy Meadow on first. And I want to put a piece on the top here. And I've gone for a slightly larger border against the white, just to kind of help it stand out a little bit. And then I've done the narrow border with the Designer Series paper. And you want one on the side here, so this is the next panel that you're going to do. And then you want one on here. Now the only thing to watch here is obviously if you have a directional panel, a directional DSP, so that means a DSP that has a kind of an up and a down when you look at it. One of the lovely things about this is it actually doesn't matter too much which way you put this paper on. So you can really, if you get it upside down, it really doesn't matter. So I'm just going to pop that on there. You'll see this is just a very narrow border. Hopefully you'll see, I bet this is the bit that I've done out of shot, haven't I? Oh, just about in shot. Woohoo! It comes of only having literally I have a desk that I craft on, which if you imagine that desk also has my stack of paper. It has my ink and punch racks. So I'm actually working on literally a piece of desk just about the size of my grid paper. So sometimes it just gets a little bit cramped. Okay, so there we've put all of our panels. I'm just going to pop these end ones on as well and just check how we're doing for time. Okay. So we're almost there. But this box is great because, you know, you could easily put pens if someone was going away to on holiday, and wanted to package something up for them to take with them. That would be great. Okay, so there we have all of our panels done. So now we're going to construct our box. So this flap here is the one you're going to need to cover entirely with glue. Of course, there we go. So I'm just going to use some red tape here for us for speed. So when you're making a box, just make sure that whatever glue you've got, and it will depend on what part of the world you're in, isn't going to spring open. So I know in some parts of the world that with the humidity, it's generally not a problem here in the UK. sad to say in some ways. So we take our red tape off, and the first thing we're going to do is fold our outer panel up, and you'll notice I didn't actually notch these out. I often do. I've kept them square because it just makes it really easy to construct this box. Okay, like so. Then you do exactly the same with some glue on the panel here. So grab some fuse for speed. That's going to be quicker than me faffing around with. Well, it would be if I could get that to work. Okay. So just fold that up square there as well, and the same on this end. And there's your box, which you can fold up and then tie with your length of ribbon. And then, so now we've made our box, we just need to do our decoration. So to do that, what I've done is I've taken just as simple as possible that we can do. I've taken one of our images, and I'm taking our happy birthday. And then I'm using my blender pen and some of the ink. So blender ink, put a bit of ink on the block, just wipe off a little bit, and then all you do is you just colour. And you don't need to have lots of different colours, and that's all I've done with that particular image, is just cut it. Once I've coloured it, I've cut that out. So that's my image there that I've got. I'm using my Stampin' Pierce mat just to cushion it a little bit so we get a really nice finish. And then all I'm going to do is come in with the, this is the Label Me Fancy punch, and punch out my happy birthday, like so. I'm going to take a piece of my petal pink, and I'm going to punch a second one, like so. And then, as we've done before, we're going to extend our label. So all I'm going to do now is put some glue on both ends of my label, but leaving a gap in the middle. And then, because it's quite a long box, I wanted a longish label, so I'm just creating a little layer like so. And then all we need to do now is pop a few dimensionals on the back of our flower, a couple on there, a couple on our happy birthday. Okay, add our flat floral image to the front. And blender pens are great because it means you can, whatever ink pad you've got, you can use that to colour. Pop our happy birthday in, and then with my ribbon, I'm just cutting just under 3 times the length of the box. I did a rubbish job of tying that together, of gluing that together even, and all you do is pop that on there. So there you have a pretty Hello Magnolia Blooms box that would take all sorts all you need to do then is just finish it off, just tie it off with the ribbon, do a nice big bow on the top.